The crimes couldn't have been more similar. Holes cut into the roofs, managers forced to open safes, workers told to get into the coolers, a rifle used in both robberies. But no one was hurt. In fact, the suspect was nice.
I was brewing tea, and all of a sudden I just see someone walk to the front counter with a mask, and I can only see the eyes and the nose a little bit.
Very polite person. He always makes sure that the employees, before he walks them into the refrigerator, that he has them put on their coats so that they'll stay warm.
Roofman is a return customer to this region. He's hit places in Folsom, Sacramento, Tracy, and Placerville.
The whole time he was saying, "I'm so sorry, you guys are the good people, I'm the bad person, I don't want to put you through this, but I'm so sorry for doing that." At some point, my boss, put all the money in there, and he said to her, "No, go ahead, put the change, put the quarters, I like quarters." So she put also the change there.
Police arrested this man, 28-year-old Jeffrey Manchester. He lives in Concord, California. His employer, the United States Army.
I come here in the early 90s. Crack cocaine had just been invented. It was coming from California, thank you very much, across the country and hitting our streets. And that was when the violence started to pick up. I don't think he's any different as a criminal than any of the other criminals that we had dealt with. He just had the ability to think ahead and process things. He was charming.
As soon as Jeffrey was arrested, I started getting phone calls from the FBI in California because they suspected that he was the same defendant that had broken into, I think, several McDonald's and other fast food restaurants on the West Coast. But I knew if the federal government got him, we weren't getting him back, and I had young kids that had been working at McDonald's and an elderly lady who were all pretty shook up.
I feel like we got a really accurate account, as much as you could, because he's an incredible liar, pretty much about everything.
I'm in prison. I was in prison for armed robbery. They gave me almost 40 years, and it wasn't going to give me a second chance, so I figured that I would make a second chance for myself. And one of the things I did on the very first day that I got arrested was I had a mantra every morning, and my mantra was, "I would escape, I will escape, I will escape." I found one rag that had this huge emblem on it. I very carefully cut it out, and then I went and took a little metal rod that you use for TIG welding. I printed it, I sanded one end to a point, and I took some dental floss and I sewed that emblem onto the t-shirt. I went to the bathroom and went to the stall, and I took off my clothes and I put my civilian clothes I made on, and then put my prison clothes on top of that. At this point, I was in. I felt that this was going to happen. I walked up casually over to where the truck was. I looked around as nonchalantly as I possibly could, and then I just ducked underneath the truck, hauled up, and waited, and waited, and waited.
I was the original driver that Jeffrey Manchester escaped up under. He studied the truck coming in every day. I drove the box truck in, and we would load products on his truck and take them out for delivery on that afternoon or either the next day. The inmates went through the metal detector, and after they went through the metal detector, he just walked right around up in there and got up under the truck. I was inside getting my paperwork done for the next day trip, and I drove out, and the officer checked the truck, said it was good, and I drove up to the parking lot, and I parked the truck, and I got in my car and left.
When I was underneath the truck and actually left the facility, I was excited. The first part of my plan was to actually get out of prison, and I had just accomplished that. The truck goes to the top of the hill, it parks. I come out of my little hidey hole. Charles was gone. At that point, I was pretty much all alone in the parking lot. So I beelined right for the woods. I think a lot of people can escape, but the problem is when they do escape, they have no end game. They have no continuation of the plan of once they get out. They usually go see their mom or a girlfriend and they get captured a week or two later. My intention was to find some place where I could lay low for a while. That place had to have food, water, and shelter. I've never worked at a Toys R Us, but I knew that they had those three things. So that was where I was going to go.
After I cleared the whole entire building, my first thing was I need to find a place that I could probably make a little hideout in.
When we bought the place, it was a Circuit City. That was Toys R Us next door, and they were still open, and this place in Circuit City was closed down. He had to be pretty smart to do some of the things that he did, not just a dummy, because he knew how to hide good. And then that's the hole that was all covered up from up there.
I started bringing stuff there. I found some puzzle-shaped floor mats. I cut those to shape to fit the hole to go on the entire floor of the little hideout. After that, I moved in. I went over to Toys R Us and I took a bunch of baby monitors. I slightly modified them and I positioned them all over the place. I had a pretty slick little hideout.
As a kid, I was raised Catholic. I really enjoyed going to church. It was more about the people there than it was, God and praising Jesus. There was something about all these people, like-minded, believing the same thing. There was just this positive energy. There's something about it always draws me to it. This lady, she introduces me to a couple people. One of the people that she introduces me to is a woman named Lee.
I remember the first time I saw him at the church, and he was well-groomed, he was clean, and very polite. And he had a nice physique, and that would explain the military background. But he was just a very likable person, so people naturally embraced him.
He was a nice fella. He got involved in our church. I don't remember anyone saying, gosh, you better be careful. Don't remember anybody saying anything like that. He was just a really nice fella. And we had a Bible study on Wednesday nights, and he would come to Bible study on Wednesday nights.
We began dating, and I first met him at the local park, and we just talked and got to know each other, and then it kind of grew from there. And he was really a kid at heart, because he really got along with my kids really well.
I told her, that I was previously in the military and now I'm working for the government. And in a way, I kind of was working kind of for the government because I did have a job in prison and I was getting paid. But obviously, it was a lie.
Some official-looking people came to my office and showed me a picture, out on the front steps, and said that the man that I had been dating was on America's Most Wanted. And I was like, no, I don't believe you. No, I don't believe you. I freaked out and was very upset, and I started crying, and I talked with them afterward, and they wanted me to help them capture him. And they had me calling him on the phone, and my 40th birthday was approaching in a day or two, and I asked him to take me to dinner for my 40th birthday. He was all excited, and I was in the police car about a mile away. I heard the whole thing over the speakers in the car where they wrestled him to the ground. He came to my door with a bouquet of flowers that hit the pavement, and he was gone.
It was like a blank oh geez, I'm screwed kind of look. And I went up to him, and I remember standing there, and he was rather tall. He was taller than me, and I said, "What's your name?" And he said, "You know my name." And I said, "Yeah, but I want to hear you say it." And he said, "It's Jeffrey Manchester."
We are in Maxwell, North Carolina, and we are filming here today with my favorite since Step Up, Channing Tatum, and oh my God, I can't even, and Kirsten Dunst about it was a true crime that happened in Charlotte, North Carolina, and he goes through the roof, it's Roofman, and he does the heist, and there's all the Charlotte Mecklenburg police and the Gastonia police, and he eats baby food in the Toys R Us. I know the story, I'm so excited.
And Mark. And Fred.
Background, action.
Roofman was a project that was originally shared with me as an idea. When I heard about it, I said instantly, this is going to be something that Derek is going to love. And once he talked to Jeffrey Manchester, it was just an idea he couldn't shake.
All right, great. Cut it.
Very,
very nice. On to the next one.
And so I said, well, if I'm going to be a part of this, then I have to start with a blank page, and I have to start with the person. You know, like, let me talk to Jeff. So somehow we figured out how to get Jeff to call me because he's in a maximum security prison. Well, me and my co-writer, Kurt Gunn, we would receive separate phone calls from him, and we'd each get little stories of his life. And there's so many details that he told us that you could never write. And in fact, like when Kurt and I started writing some of those scenes out, we were thinking, like, this isn't believable that this happened.
Shooting in Charlotte, it's not like a good business decision or production decision, but it's a good creative decision, and Derek's movies are all about soul, and I think the soul of the movie was here.
Channing. Cutting. Let's move on. Move on.
Really nice.
We're telling a story about a guy that basically, you know, is a liar a bit. You know, he's a bit of a con man, or has lied, you know, and his life, especially in our movie, is a big lie. And he can't really get out of that. He's like, if he tells any amount of the truth, everything that he has, that he wants, goes away.
I didn't know it was a true story when I read it. And I just felt like this is the kind of movie that I really wanted to see and that we don't really make anymore.
Making true crime stories or sort of telling the stories of real people is like, it's complicated and tricky, especially when they're all still alive and you're shooting in a lot of the same locations and with some of the same people. And I think you have to kind of be respectful, empathetic, and kind of approach it with integrity.
There's a police officer on set today, was one of the first police officers that arrived at the Toys R Us after Jeff was apprehended. And I just love hearing everyone's real stories. And as much as possible, I've been trying to get their perspectives and then offer them a place at the table. So like Ron Smith, the pastor, is going to be playing the pawn shop owner. Catherine Scheimreif, who apprehended Jeff, she's part of the church ensemble. Charles, who drove the truck out of prison that Jeff escaped under, is actually the real guy who drove the truck when Jeff escaped. And I love this idea of, like, for me as a filmmaker, ceding some of that control back to the real people who were a part of it and let them relive this moment in their lives that could be traumatic, that could be momentous. You know, it was a momentous moment in the city of Charlotte back in the day.
All the movies that I want to make are about the complexity of humanity. How we walk through the world and how the circumstances around us affect the way we interact with other people, affect our decisions, and affect our choices. And Derek makes movies that explore that.
When I think about the pathos, like the real heartbreak of this story, the one we're telling, which is distinct from a documentary of what happened here. It's people that are in a very difficult situation, that are making a mess of things, but that are laughing at a time where we know that something really sad is going on.
Like, I think there's going to be a lot of people who come and see them and say, like, jailbreak and hiding in a Toys R Us or whatever. And then they're going to get in, and then they're going to get moved by the story. Hey, Mud?
So the cinematic truth that has to be told, I think, is about a man who didn't fit in, and all of his choices were about trying to be a part of something. And ultimately, it's a story about a man who wants to be in a family.
I'm really kind of curious to see how it plays out because I don't know. I don't really know. I know what I did. I know what happened in real life. I'm kind of curious how he's taking a little creative spin and making it into something that would appeal to an audience.
Thank you for clicking on our video, everybody. If you like what you saw here, please make sure you like the video and subscribe and share with your friends who like this sort of content. Joblo remains an independent company, and we appreciate all of your support.